Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about some interviewing skills, whether you're interviewing for residency or interviewing for a job, after school. It's very important to know some of the skills that you're going to need when doing those interviews. When you do get on an interview, first of all, it's very important to know that you're kind of on equal footing with everybody else who's interviewing. Grades at that point typically don't matter anymore. Really, what matters now is simply the interview, and you're kind of, again, equal with everybody else. So it's very important that you nail the interview, that you know what you're talking about during the interview. So I'm just going to provide you with some tips for interviewing. First of all, first thing you want to do is videotape yourself. So have a friend ask you interview questions and videotape yourself while the friend is asking you questions. This allows you to, one, practice answering the questions, which is very important, and I'll come to in a second. But it also allows you to then see whether you have any nonverbal behaviors, any idiosyncratic behaviors that you might be presenting throughout the interview. Oftentimes people say or ah or oh, things that they may not realize they're saying when they're kind of having a pause. So you can videotape yourself, look for what you're actually saying, look to make sure you're making eye contact and not simply looking at the ground the whole time, look to make sure you're not twiddling your fingers, tapping your feet at all, making any lip smacking noises, anything that you probably wouldn't be aware of while you're doing the interview, but you can certainly see once you look back on the video. The second thing you want to do is know the most common questions that you're going to be asked and also certainly know how to answer those questions. So some of the most common questions are going to be things like, tell me about yourself, or, what is, one of your weaknesses, or why do you want to work here or come to this program? So be sure to have answers to those questions ready when the time comes. Now, you don't necessarily want to memorize word for word what you're going to say, but you should have a general idea of the content in mind so that when you address those questions, again, you're not just fumbling through your words, but you're actually making sense. You, again, don't want to necessarily memorize because you also don't want to sound like a robot, like you're reading off of a speech. So again, for the most part, have 90% of it down before you go in. That way you'll, again, know what you're talking about without sounding too robotic. The other thing you want to do, again, when answering questions that you know of ahead of time, are try to make stories out of what the question is asking. So, for example, if the question asks you, tell me a little bit about yourself, you can address the question by saying, well, I believe that, I'm a strong leader as well as a lifelong learner. In fact, when I was working with Dr. Ben-Zur in cardiology, I learned a lot through him. In particular, there was this one case where I learned so much the yada 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 about say a specific procedure, and once I felt comfortable with that procedure, I then went ahead and actually felt confident in telling other people about that procedure, trying to spread the knowledge, because I feel very strongly in teaching others and leading others in areas that I feel confident about. So you can kind of give them an example, share some knowledge with them. If you actually teach them something that they might not be aware of, that can be a very valuable tool because that shows them that you actually know some specific information and that you can be of help to them. A third thing you want to do is have your own questions ready. So when you come into the interview, sometimes the interviewer may specifically ask you, do you have any questions for us? Certainly you don't just want to sit there blank and without a question for them. So have some general questions in mind. Look up the program, look to see if there's anything you're interested in. If it's a residency, for example, you can ask about some of the research that they've been doing there, how far along they are in certain projects that they're working on. What are they most excited about? If it's more of a job, you can ask them about collegiality. How do people get along here? Are people treated well, from the nurses, to the PAs, to the doctors? Does everybody seem to collaborate? So certainly have your own questions ready. Fourth, one of the most important things that you want to demonstrate when you're on an interview is the fact that when you, or if you get hired, you will be staying there, that it's a long-term commitment. And this can be done in a variety of ways. First of all, you want to show that you've had previous experiences where you've been extremely dedicated, that when you decided to do something, you stuck with it. So certainly bring up your previous experiences of dedication. Also show them that you're knowledgeable about the program. Again, ask them specific questions about the program or about the workplace. Show that you have researched this, and that will again show that you are actually dedicated to this program or that you're dedicated to this job, and also be very enthusiastic when you're conducting the interview. Again, this just shows that you're very much interested in the program or the job. Even if as you're going through the interview, you've decided that, oh, this isn't for me, I'm not going to work here at all, there's probably no way, still be enthusiastic throughout the whole thing. You never know what contacts you can make during an interview, even if you don't end up working there. You could have contacts, that last years after that. That could be very useful down the line. So don't just kind of give up, even if you've decided that this isn't right for you. Still show enthusiasm throughout the whole interview process. Another key thing that people are often looking for during interviews is personality, right? So if you're a resident, you're going to be working with this individual for a lot of time. They're probably going to see you more than they see their spouse or their children. Similarly, if it's a job, these people are going to see you day in, day out. They want to know that you are somebody who they can work with. And what that means then is they want you to be optimistic. They want you to be cheerful. They want you to be happy. They want you to be polite. To be thankful, right? Nobody wants to work with somebody who is, overconfident in the fact that they think they're a know-it-all. Nobody wants to work with somebody who's constantly putting down other people. In fact, if you put down somebody else, the saying goes, well, why wouldn't you put down me, right? Never express any negatives during an interview. You definitely don't want to do that. Even, again, if it's this horrible person you've worked with previously and other people know the person is horrible, never bring that up. Always be gracious. Always say, oh yes, I had an experience with that person where I actually learned a lot with that person, right? So always be positive, always be optimistic. Finally, when you're ending the interview, be thankful to everybody. So, thank every person that you've met, from the lowest person on the totem pole to the top, say thank you very much for your time, and that you look forward to hearing from them, that you are, again, extremely interested in this position and you cannot wait to hear back from them. So those are just some of the tips for interviewing. Hopefully that helps you out along the way.